Hello and welcome to this InfoReady webinar. Today we'll join Jennifer Kaufman and Christopher Stordelin from the University of Minnesota. They'll discuss how their College of Liberal Arts uses InfoReady Review. The panelists are unique among our typical guests for Peer Spotlight webinars. They are administrators in the Research and Graduate Programs Office of a specific college, opposed to a central university research office. Also, these guests are relatively new to the InfoReady Review platform, so they can share first impressions of it and how they've already deployed it in their research administration processes. So join us now as our webinar is about to begin.
Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Carlos Moncada. I'm Director of Client Services at InfoReady. Thanks for taking the time to join us for today's Peer Spotlight webinar. Our guest panelists today are Jennifer Kaufman and Christopher Stordelin from the College of Liberal Arts at the University of Minnesota in the Twin Cities. So everyone silently thank them for being panelists today. Welcome them. So Jennifer is in the Office of Research and Graduate Programs, while Christopher is with Liberal Arts Technologies and Innovation Services, or Lattice for short. And Jennifer and Christopher will be discussing a wide range of topics involving program and process management for research and non-research activities for both faculty and graduate students, including some unique ways to use InfoReady Review. They're really using it for quite a few different things in the College of Liberal Arts. They're also going to share their plans for using InfoReady Engagement Hub. So that's at the early stages, so that it won't go completely in depth, but they'll share the early results and plans. And so before we get started, just want to go over the logistics. So the webinar is scheduled for 60 minutes. About 20 minutes of that will be the presentation from the panelists, and then the remainder will be for Q&A with them. The audio for everyone is muted, and any questions can be submitted via the Q&A option, and then we'll ask those during the Q&A portion. If you called in by phone instead of computer, you may want to take the added precaution of muting your phone, because those aren't always synced up. And for those who have colleagues unable to attend the webinar, we are recording it, and we'll be sharing a link in the next week or so. There's also a post-webinar survey for you to fill out. It's optional, but it's a great place to submit additional questions or get ask for more information about what you hear. Lastly, I think almost everyone is working remotely here. So if you hear any pets or children in the background, apologies in advance. Now that we've covered the logistics, I'll turn it over to our panelists, Jennifer Kaufman and Christopher Stordelin. I think they are going to impart several helpful tips that will be useful during the new academic year. And without further ado, Jennifer and Christopher, take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, first off, welcome. We can jump to the next slide if you would. Again, I'm Jennifer Kaufman. I work in the Executive Office and Research Development Specialist in the Office of Research and Graduate Programs in the College of Liberal Arts at the University of Minnesota. So my role, I really have two parts. Half of me is working with our graduate programs and graduate students and running various competitions and programs with them. And then the other half of me is working with our research development team and running faculty awards, funding opportunities, and then also working with faculty that are submitting requests for assistance with submitting external grants and awards and things like that. So that's just a little background. We'll get more into details as we go through the slides. But then my colleague here, Christopher, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining. It's great to be with you here today. This is really going to be the Jennifer Kaufman show. I'm very secondary or tertiary to the process, but my role in Lattice in CLA is basically to look around, see opportunities for tools and process improvement opportunities, and to find out how we can implement those. And so this is one example of how that process works. This particular tool, Jennifer was the big driver. She had heard about the tool from another unit that we'll talk about at the university, and was instrumental in just diving in and getting this going. So kudos to her for bringing this great tool to the college.
Wonderful. So we can jump to the next slide. And Christopher, I think this is kind of you.
It is. So at the University of Minnesota, we often are finding opportunities to improve, and they come from sort of more of from the collegiate level or the unit level, and not often, at least at the start, at a university level or a central level. And so even though the College of Liberal Arts at the University of Minnesota is very large, it's still one college of 13 at the University of Minnesota. And so we operate InfoReady, or have implemented, in more of a consortium model. The Masonic Cancer Center was actually the first unit to identify InfoReady and bring it to the University of Minnesota. And then followed closely thereafter by the College of Veterinary Medicine and our college, the College of Liberal Arts. And so through conversations, just people finding out about, through presentations, different areas, also medical school, developed an interest for 3 of their units to also implement InfoReady. And so with regard to licensing and just developing a user base, it became important to think about how are we working together to learn the tool, to benefit from each other's experience. And so that's what we're trying to build right now, is a user community, and share the licensing burden together, so that we can all benefit. Next slide.
Wonderful. So in CLA at the University of Minnesota, we are the largest college. My office itself works with about 30 or so departments, centers, and initiatives, depending on what day you count them. You know, there's something always new popping up. And then we provide departmental support. My office does at the graduate level, so interacting with departments regarding their graduate students, their funding opportunities, teaching opportunities, things like that. And then we also work with the faculty in each department more on a research level, but also serving as like a director of graduate studies. And then we work with staff that are graduate program coordinators, GPCs that we call them, that interact with graduate students as well. So we interact with the departments at various levels. Graduate student wise is we interact with them when they're applying for awards or funding through our office, or if they're applying for a fellowship opportunity that we may have. The funding sources can come from an array of resources, either through endowments, donors. They might be funding that the graduate school is partnering with us to provide funding to students, but we're running the competition to see what students will be awarded, and things like that. And then we also partner with other centers and initiatives on campus for program participation. Our most recent one is the IDPD, which I believe was the Interdisciplinaries for Doctoral Dissertation Writing, and the Center for Writing does this as well. So we kind of have this big, broad stretch across the college, but also kind of these pieces of the university at the university level interacting with us as well. So we can hop over to the next slide. Focusing more on the faculty support, we were first really interested in InfoReady review. Kind of like I mentioned at the beginning, half part of me works with our research development team, which we have 2 research development coordinators, one for our social sciences focused programs and departments, and the other for arts and humanities focused. And we were receiving all these requests from faculty that they can come to us and they can say, hey, I'm looking to apply for an external grant, either to a foundation or a National Science Foundation. And we assist them in getting their ducks in a row for applying to these grants, and we help review their contents and making sure their formatting is correct and all these things. So we just kind of get these one-off email requests, and it just got a little cumbersome of tracking and how do we keep track of, who's working with whom and what stages are we at with each of the faculty. So our first thing that we really launched was this intent to submit form, and they really just go online and we share, we do what we call Z-links here at the U in CLA. So we have this nice short little URL Z-link that we send out in all of our different communications with faculty in our various newsletters. It's on our website, just kind of really ingraining this Z-link into them of like, this is where I go when I need to get started. And they come to this intent to submit form and they just let us know that, hey, I'm interested in submitting an application. This is the timeline. This is what I'm looking at. Here's the call for applications, just to kind of get everything started. And then from there, we can kind of run with it a little bit more. This also resolved an issue of us tracking of how much assistance are we providing to faculty, where again, all these emails are kind of across the board. And then, it was up to us to make sure it got into a spreadsheet so we could track it and really what parts are we assisting with. Well, now this intent to submit form says we can go in there, and when our associate dean comes in and says, okay, what's our data, what's the dashboard look like, we can go into InfoReady, pull out the spreadsheet, the information, and already know like, okay, these are how many submissions we had between these certain dates. And then we have a little checkbox in there that says we're assisting with content review, budget development. Oh, they just really needed us to complete the request for proposal that goes up to our sponsored project administration. So it gave us 1 organization and 2 data in hand, so we really know what we're working with. Once we kind of got that launched and we got more familiar with InfoReady, that's when we really started jumping into our competitions. Whereas before we were having to manage like Google spreadsheets and Google Forms and really kind of pulling from one source to drop into another source to create award letters and doing mail merging. And so you're in and out of the system, you're in and out of the Google platform and jumping over to the Word side. And so we were really focused on moving competitions into one system, one platform, and InfoReady is fantastic at doing this. So we did move our tenure track single semester leave application in there. This one only gets a handful of applications a year, which was a great one for us to start with, so we can kind of get the lay of the land with InfoReady. And then we've continued to expand it where now we do certain awards that are endowment and donor award based for funding. And again, that data piece to it of saying like how many applications, you can track how much we're giving to each one, and then the automation of the award letters, and I'm really loving the automation of the reporting side of the post-award items that need to happen. And then this last year, we did a revamp of our sabbatical leave application process, which was a huge undertaking at the college level. And we can go ahead and hop to the next slide, and I'll kind of talk about this a little bit more. That this one became so, it was great that it was an InfoReady because we had more than 90 applications. It had extensive application files, so we had to have just a general project overview of what the sabbatical leave is going to be about. We took in curriculum vitas. We had to have multiple reviewers. The chair had to say, yep, it's okay for them to be gone during the certain semesters. Our research team reviewed just kind of the project proposal to make sure, yes, they're going out and they're going to be doing great work and doing research. The associate deans reviewed it to make sure all the departments were then happy and working with the chairs on the side as well. And then we do have a curriculum and eligibility staff at the college level as well. Just making sure that the departments were prepared for the faculty to be gone during certain times, certain semesters, and then will they have additional faculty to teach those courses. and just kind of managing all of that and how that all works. So the sabbatical leave, I will say, by far has been our largest application process, and I would say most extensive as well, just because of the number of levels of approval that we needed to pass through and how many individuals, administration at the college level needed to be in the system to review files. So I think it went really well. Of course, we're going to have things that we'll tweak for this next year as we learn, but no, it's been great. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. On the student side, again, we were using a lot of Google Forms and Google Application, Google Sheets, just to manage some of these smaller one-time funding opportunities. So we do this one in the summer that students can get fellowships for. Just it's a small fellowship amount just to get them through the summer. This was great because we're kind of just reusing that application process in InfoReady. We're just, copying that application process and reusing it year after year. It's very basic. Students just apply to it, and then it's a better way for us to track students that are receiving the funding over a long term. Prior to InfoReady, we still have, and we're still working on cleaning up, extensive spreadsheets of like, okay, this student got funding 2 years ago, and then it's a 4-year award opportunity that students can get. So we're always having to go back to these spreadsheets and say, okay, they got it 2 years ago, and now they're going to get it now, so they have 2 years left. Always having to check that eligibility, whereas now in InfoReady, we can go in, we can look at that user, we can see how many times they applied or were awarded, and we can quickly and easily see, yep, they were awarded these 2 summers, they still have 2 more open, 2 more available for them to receive. So it's just really simplified things in that aspect. And then for the doctoral dissertation fellowship, this isn't fully ours. We're working with another department on campus that kind of headed up the program opportunity for students, and then we were partnering with them because it's open to CLA that we just kind of manage the application side of it. They were using a whole nother system, which I'm not even really sure what the name of that system was, but once we kind of said, hey, we have InfoReady, would you like to use this? We can easily set it up. You can have access to see what's going on, and they just jumped right in. So we've used InfoReady Review for faculty support, student financial support, student programming, and opportunities. So we're looking forward to expanding it. And you can go to the next slide, if you would, please. The Center for Writing has also reached out to us. They were also struggling with receiving, 60 applications for these dissertation writing retreats and wanting a better way to kind of streamline the process for reviews. And I would say the reviewer side has probably been the part that they've been most appreciative of, being able to just say, they have their 5 reviewers that are going to review all of these applications, and they just have that all automated and set up. So those notifications just, automatically send out once the application is accepted in. And the turnaround time to which we're receiving responses from committee members now is much quicker. We don't have to be tracking all of these reviews either coming in through a spreadsheet or a form or, one-off emails. And you missed an email and you have to go find it, and you're asking, a faculty of, hey, I need your information, but they said I already sent it. So this InfoReady has really streamlined just any process that has a committee, any reviewers, these programs. The writing retreats are becoming more and more popular, so we're seeing more and more applications come in. So we're really just kind of thankful that we have the system in our hands now. So, and then on the next slide, like Christopher mentioned, we are looking to continue expanding. The more the partnering departments and administrative offices that we have that are seeing us use InfoReady, the promotion, tenure, and review is actually in a different office in our college, but they are interested in using it, which again is a huge undertaking of, multiple documents. You don't have to, this was always a huge thing of like using Google Forms of, you had to go in and make sure you had all your documents, or do they have to submit it as a single PDF? And InfoReady does all that for us. So just saving so much time on the administrative end of things. We're looking to move faculty development leaves potentially in there. Um, Actually, this faculty awards extension request, I believe the Masonic Cancer Center that Christopher had talked about that initially brought this to our campus, I was on their page and I saw that they did it this way, whereas we were still doing, faculty would submit that email again and we'd have to review it, but I'm definitely going to be moving into this extension request form into InfoReady as well. Again, just tracking all in one spot. And as more administration departments are getting more interested in it, so maybe if they have graduate student funding just within their department, they award out. We've had departments ask if they can gain access to it and sharing templates with them. And then, as was mentioned earlier, we are doing InfoReady Scale, which we just started up this last summer. The scale we're really looking forward to because we're encouraging faculty and graduate students to go to one spot to find a number of opportunities that are available to them, that whereas before maybe they'd have to go to the provost office webpage, they'd go to the CLA webpage, they'd go to a department webpage, they'd have to go to an external site webpage. Well, if it's one that faculty or students are applying to, that we're seeing it every year pop up, then I'm creating one of those tiles to then just keep it in front of them so they know where to go. And again, that Z-link that I mentioned is we're just going to keep on sending that Z-link out. And like every time they think, oh, I need funding or support, or what about this program, that they go to this one Z-link, they come to the engagement hub, and they can see everything all in one spot. So even though if it's not housed within InfoReady, we're at least trying to get them to where they need to be, and they're not having to search for a URL. And then Christopher, I think this is also your slide as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we may have covered a majority of the important things on here. I just think it's the idea of thinking about how end users or how folks are looking for funding opportunities or other opportunities, and having one location that makes sense to manage the information. I think that's what we're looking for. We have a number of other workflow tools on the horizon and already implemented, and so we sort of talk through where things are going to be best. But obviously funding has already, InfoReady is shown to be such a great tool here already, and so putting it in this funding bucket, and so people can grow in the college to know this is the environment that I can expect when I'm looking for a funding opportunity that has a lot of value.
And then on the next slide, again, it has just our general contact information. I would say with InfoReady coming to the university for a handful of different colleges, is we've been sharing the templates and kind of learning from each other. So we're more than happy to share, the various templates that we already have started. So there is my email address, and Christopher's on there as well if you have any questions for him. But I think we are ready to open it up for questions.
Okay, thanks so much, Jennifer and Christopher. Shared lots of great information there. Really an expansive view of how you're using the system and all the different processes and really stakeholders involved that are interacting with the system in various ways. So we've been getting questions, and we got questions during registration as well. So if you're ready, let's hop into Q&A.
That's great.
So first question, did you work with InfoReady to help with the programming of these processes, or did you develop them on your own?
For the most part, we just kind of really sat down and developed them on our own. We really already knew our process just from, being on the ins and outs of the Google form, the Google spreadsheets, and things like that. We did work with Christopher and Lattice prior to kind of discovering InfoReady and laying out some processes and really diving into where does it, what's the next step? Where does it need to go? Who needs to be contacted? So that was really helpful of being able to reference back to kind of what we had already documented of what's going on, and at every step of the way, and kind of knowing what the the small details that you kind of forget about as you're looking at the big picture. So once we jumped into InfoReady with it, again, using the templates that maybe other colleges have, and I believe I attended some of the InfoReady webinars like this one and saw others present on what they were doing. And so I reached out to a few of them and said, hey, would you be willing to share your templates? And of course, they're wonderful and they share their templates with us. And so then after that, you kind of go in and you tweak it. But and I know InfoReady's been expanding the various templates that they have available, and I haven't even been able to jump into all of those yet. But you do just kind of need to have it's nice to have a shell of a starting point, but you really kind of do just have to sit down and kind of pencil out, like, where does it need to go now? And who, does the department need to approve it before the chair or the administration, or, kind of nailing down those things.
Just wanted to highlight that idea. Any tool, software tool, it can be seen as fixing any situation. It often is not the case. It certainly aids in the process, but talking through your process and what works and what doesn't, that's what takes a majority of the time of any sort of implementation like this. So the more work you can do in getting those detailed process steps and identifying, well, we have duplicate steps here. Why are we even doing that? That just makes the implementation process so much easier, and then the tool becomes that much more valuable.
And I'll add one thing, and I share this with administrators from all the institutions we work with. When you create a competition or an opportunity in InfoReady for the first time, let's say you're migrating a manual process into the system. So your old process plus a new tool or new system means you're going to have a new process. And it's also an opportunity to streamline and optimize what you're doing. So I would say definitely take the time, regardless of the tool, to think it through. So just echoing what Jennifer and Christopher were saying there. So some more questions, and the questions, all different types of topics. So here is a question related to research. So Jennifer, I think this is to you. Do you coordinate and partner with your development office?
We do, not in InfoReady. They have their own system and processes at the university level for the development or for grant applications. We do partner with like our development foundation office in the College of Liberal Arts. They don't utilize the InfoReady system, but we partner with them on knowing what information they want. So we have one competition that has a funder. He's been providing support for about 4 or 5 years now. And so we keep a close relationship with the development office to know what that funder is going to be looking for at the end. Once all these, the funding opportunities are awarded, what kind of data are they going to want? So we make sure that we have a reporting template that we send out to faculty. So once their award term is over, they complete this template. So we know what, have the data in hand to provide to the development office so they can go back and talk to that donor. So yes, InfoReady is definitely helps us kind of streamline our process for the award competitions itself, but it also kind of helps us manage, kind of keep in, one spot the data that we know we're going to want to have to provide to the development office to work with the donors.
So thanks for that. And there's actually a related question from a different person. Do you have a separate internal grant submission platform that goes to sponsored programs, or do you use this for grant submissions?
That's a great question, because it is a separate platform, and really ours right now, once we get through our research development coordinators work with the faculty to get their applications ready. Right now, we just send a simple email to our sponsored program administration, just letting them know that this application is ready. At the university level, they're actually in the process of implementing a new system that's being developed right now. So while we would love it if it was all within InfoReady and all one system, you know, it's not, but that's just fine. This keeps us in CLA organized. And so then once we're ready to hand it off, we just, the research development coordinators kind of check the box in InfoReady that says, yep, accepted, submitted, done. So again, we can do the tracking on our end when things are happening, but yeah, it moves into their system after that.
I'm going to add something to that. We have done data feeds for other institutions. So let's say a data feed out of InfoReady Review to a data repository that can be then shared with sponsored programs. We've also done integrations with Cayuse, the Cayuse SP, if any of you use that. We're actually working on a standard integration with that right now. So just wanted to put that out there if anyone uses both tools. So here's another question, and this is more about CLA, Jennifer. How many faculty and students are in the college? Kind of trying to get a better understanding of how many people you're serving.
Sure. Faculty-wise, we're about 500. Graduate student-wise, I believe we're at about, I don't even know anymore, about 3,000, I think, 4,000. I'll say our system right now, we mainly are focused on the faculty, I guess are the heavier users of the system just because we have more funding opportunities and competitions for them. Our graduate side is expanding for the students to be using the system as well. And I think it will continue to expand with our use of the Engagement Hub. We'll be encouraging graduate students to be coming here as well as a main resource for seeking out funding opportunities or writing retreats, things like that. But we have restricted, like our faculty funding opportunities, we do restrict that to just the CLA, the College of Liberal Arts application. So if you don't have a @umn.edu email address, then it won't allow you to apply, which we appreciate that as well. So we do have faculty that still like to hang on to that old Gmail account that they've always had, and they want to submit information to us with that Gmail account. And so then we're not quite sure, like, well, should we contact you through the Gmail account or should we contact you through your university account? And sometimes we do both. So it's kind of nice to make them use that account and receive notifications through their @umn.edu email, because that's where the reporting reminders are going to go, and any post-award activities that we need. So we just kind of ingrain into them, like, nope, our system is, Christopher, you'll have to correct me, is it SSO connected, so they do have to use their UMN account.
Yeah, we use Shibboleth as our unified authentication sign-on system.
Yeah. And I would say over 90% of the institutions we work with have SSO turned on their sites, so it's pretty seamless for users to log in, because it's just their university login. They don't have to learn anything new. So lots more questions here. This is a good one. I think everyone will benefit from this, whether you use InfoReady or for all these different processes, or you're using another tool for a different process. So sorry for that preamble. The question is, at what point does it make sense to move a process from manual into InfoReady? Do you have any rules of thumb for number of applicants, reviewers, et cetera?
That's a great question. We actually get that question from some other departments on campus that like, well, does this even need to be moved in there? And my general response is, if you're already using multiple systems or applications to manage something, then it's worth looking into InfoReady to move over. Again, ours was really big with Google Forms, Google Spreadsheets, lots of email, and everything was, you know, in 3 or 4 different places, and you're having to pull from a spreadsheet to a document or whatever it is. So if you're using multiple applications to manage it, I would definitely look at moving it into InfoReady, even if it's like we have competitions that only have 7, you know, maybe it only has 7 applications each year. Well, if there's a review process, and this is part of it too, if you have a committee review, and so now you're pulling all your information from all those 3 avenues, and then you're having to compile it yourself, and then you're having to send out emails for the review committee to look at it, and you have to track all of their responses on a whole nother separate spreadsheet. It's just, I would definitely encourage you to look at InfoReady.
Yeah, I think I do a lot of woodworking, and when I was younger, an instructor of mine said, if you're going to do it more than twice, build a jig. And a jig is something that is a template basically for woodworking. And so I think that's really helpful, and especially because this particular system is pretty lightweight to implement. Again, the large portion of the work that you're going to be doing is talking about your process and figuring that out. And if you have a good handle on that already and can map it out pretty easily, it's pretty low barrier to entry.
Thanks for those answers. It's a question that comes up all the time. Like, how do you know when to use a system or not? So I think it's valuable really for anything, and anytime you're using an automated tool.
One thing I did want to say is that we don't think often about sustainability, meaning I won the lottery sort of situation, but you know, standardizing on something like this, even for a small number of applicants or a small process, has huge value when you're trying to train somebody else into a position, or somebody leaves and somebody's got to cover. At least there's a base you know, process and something that's a structure that's built out so people can find their way.
Yeah, we hear that all the time, actually, right? It helps with the continuity when there's staff or personnel transitions. Here's the next question relates to that tangentially. And this is about data, right? Because we all know when there's a staff transition and there's reporting time or need to get data, people lose the context. So here's the question: who helps with pulling the data into reports for you? How do you do it?
Sure. This too is one of the benefits of InfoReady, is that, and I think there's an access question here as well as who all has access, but as an administrator, you're considered an administrator in the system, and then you also have super admins in the system. So an admin can have access to the competitions that they're creating or managing. A super admin can have access to all competitions that are going on. So like, I'm a super admin in the system, and there's some competitions in a department as well. And so if I want to, I can go look and see what they're doing, or I have access to it. So if someone did leave that position, I still have access to it to either reassign it or to help them with it. So that's a great benefit. And then related to the data question is who can pull the data, is that I pull the data. Any administrator can go in there, either as a super admin or a general admin. You can go in there and just access your application grid and pull your data out as often and as frequently as you want it, and you can manipulate from there. So that was also one of the appeals of InfoReady, is that I don't have to go through this chain of command, say at the university level, to get permission to access certain aspects of the system, whereas since it's at the college level, we have full access. I can go in and get anything I want out of it at any time. So that part of it's really nice.
And another thing to add about access and admin permissions. There's a question here that's, can different admins from different offices be only limited things? And Jennifer was mentioning if there's different levels of administrators. The just plain old administrator can only access competitions and opportunities where they're the owner or they've been added as a co-administrator. So they can't go in to another competition to see the applications or change the process or anything unless you invite them in. Same thing with the reporting. They'd only be able to report on those that they're directly involved in, but there is an option to let them report on all of the competitions. And there's also higher admin levels, and they have more permissions on going into competitions. However, you really can restrict access for people only, for administrators only being able to access their specific area. Here is another question. How do you inform faculty and get them to start sending you the letters of intent through InfoReady versus sending you individual emails?
Sure. We use a handful of encouraging spots for them, encouraging them to go online to the Z-Link to submit that intent to submit form. We send out a weekly newsletter, and at the very top of that newsletter, it says, it gives you a little blurb, and then it says request assistance, and that there's a button there that directs them straight to that intent to submit form. Faculty that have been contacting us, in years past, they know our email address, and so some will just email us still and say, hey, I'm going to submit an application. Then that's when our research development team then makes sure that we turn around and say, great, we're looking forward to working with you. Here's the Z-Link to fill out that intent to submit form so we can get you in our queue, which on our campus faculty are used to, because there's other things going on campus that, you kind of have to just submit your information first and let's get you started. So if you need IT assistance, that's how it's handled, is they essentially get created a ticket. And so this kind of falls into that same mentality of, let's get you in the queue, let's get a ticket created for you so I can do some, so the research development team can do some research beforehand before we jump in too far. The intent to submit form is also very helpful for them to fill out first. So we ask a handful of upfront questions. So we don't have to follow up with 10 other emails later on, asking, what's the due date, or, where's the call for request for proposals, what link is that, and so we do have a handful of questions built in there already to help try not to have all these extra one-off emails, as long as they answer all of our questions, which we highly encourage. But yep, we just, everything, anytime an email comes in or comes in from some other source, we just say, yep, fill out, please go to the Z-Link and fill out the form.
Thanks for sharing that. That's always, sometimes that's, part of the battle, just raising awareness and getting people to where they need to go to apply. And it can be tough. So there's another question, and this one relates to fellowship. Do you use InfoReady for individual fellowships and competitions where the award goes directly to the individual and not the university?
Yes, yep. Really, if it's a competition or funding that, can go through this process, we do it in InfoReady. We don't, the system is not used by like our fiscal department or for post-award. And so at the end of a competition, the funding, depending on the funding, if it comes straight from our office, then I might reach out to our fiscal and say, okay, we need to transfer funds from us to them, and work with the department or the student directly. Some of the larger like faculty awards, it's just a matter of transferring funds from our department, from the college level down to the department level, and just, telling the faculty member that, hey, these funds are going to be transferred. And then when the award letter is sent, I do copy our fiscal department on it. So they have tracking on their end of who was awarded and for how much. And then we just automate the email. The award letter also goes to an email address at the department level. So when you set up the award notification, you can drop in those extra email addresses. So if you need to notify the chair that, one of the faculty was awarded a sabbatical and that they're being awarded to, be gone for a semester, whatever it is. So that part of it is nice as well. So everybody is getting a copy of the same award letter for tracking. I also always copy our department email on it. So ours is just clagrad@umn.edu. So I always have it automatically send an award letter to that email address as well. So if someone comes back and says, what was that? Or I can easily do a search and find it. But having that copy has helped us out a lot as well.
Thanks, Jennifer. We've got a question here, and this is from registration. It relates to 2 questions ago. So the question is, how do you match opportunities with the wide variety of disciplines and research interests? And do people reach out to you for that?
So for a lot of our faculty awards, some of them are pretty specific in who is eligible to apply to them. So we may do a search. One is for pre-tenure faculty, and so we'll gather that data outside of the system and know who those are. And then within the system, once the competition's created, there's that nice little share button in there, and it says share competition. So then I know I just pull those links to those faculty members that are eligible to apply, and then we promote it out to them that way. And if anyone happens to stumble across the competition, like through the engagement hub or whatever, we have the eligibility paragraph in there to say who's able to say, what the qualifications are to apply. So we manage it that way. And we also have a couple of hidden applications. And so then we know if there's only, say, 20 faculty that are eligible to apply for the certain opportunity, then I won't put it on the engagement hub, and we'll just share out the link directly to those 20 faculty that are eligible to apply directly. We do get still emails here and there, into our general email account asking, hey, I thought, this opportunity was available in the past. Is it still available now? And we'll say, yeah, but you no longer, qualify to apply, or whatever the situation may be. So, kind of little tips and tricks that you kind of learn as you use the system to make your life a little bit easier.
But making your life easier is even more important right now. Excuse me. So we had a couple questions related to finance. So how do you, I'm going to combine these. How do you share the information in InfoReady with the fiscal team, and how does your finance department rely on information for grants, budgeting, cost share, and reporting?
The grants share or the grants and the cost share, we really don't, that part's not really integrated with how we use InfoReady. And I can kind of elaborate on that a little bit more if you have a specific question, but the way we let our fiscal team know is we've done a couple things depending on the opportunity and how many or how much is being awarded. Once we have like a award letter that'll go out to the faculty that has won the competition, then I will always copy our general fiscal email inbox on those award letters. So they have a copy of that award email, and that will state how much Generally, that'll state how much the faculty is being awarded, what the term of award is. If we put in there the account string, we don't always do that with all of them, but again, depending on the award, we'll drop the account string in there so then fiscal knows that, okay, we're going to see money shifting. Or I'll send a follow-up email as well to our fiscal team that says, hey, I just awarded this competition. You should have received 10 emails, just a reminder, please transfer these, within the next week or whatever it may be. But yeah, just kind of keeping them copied. If it's a large competition, such as like our sabbatical, I just exported the Excel spreadsheet that you can get out of InfoReady of like who all the awardees are. I cleaned up the spreadsheet just so I could send it off to fiscal so they have, the 5 things that they need to know. And then I shared that spreadsheet with them. So they don't, if they want the 90 word emails in that inbox, I can certainly do that, but generally they don't for sabbatical. They just really want that spreadsheet. And that's really kind of what we work off of.
Thanks, Jennifer. Here's an interesting one. How do you determine which types of opportunities, funding opportunities and research development services are managed by the Central Office of Research versus your office?
Depending on just kind of the competition that's generally already predetermined for us, that, certain endowments or donors or funding that comes through our office, we're assigned, to manage those awards, to transfer those funds, to manage the competition, to pull together a committee to review applications. There's our Office of Faculty and Academic Affairs. They have a couple funding opportunities in their office that they manage themselves, such as the faculty development leaves. So they manage that on their side, and they can be an InfoReady and be given administrative permission, so they just manage theirs, and then we manage ours. And if they need a backup, again, I make myself a super user so I can be a backup to them as well. But a lot of that's already predetermined for us. The nice thing about InfoReady is you can have multiple owners or multiple administrators to each opportunity. So this next year for sabbatical, our office, along with our Office of Faculty Affairs, will also be an administrator of that competition. So we're both working together. And this way, if there's a question or they need data out of the system, they're not just waiting on me if I'm on vacation or if I'm out with a sick kid. They don't have to wait on me, that somebody else also has access to that competition, and they can still go in there and pull out the information that they need.
Thanks. Thank you, Jennifer. Here's a question that's a change of pace question. Do you encounter any complications when individual departments want something managed a specific way for their faculty or grad students?
So if the departments want
Yeah,
this
I
competition?
think this is for the yeah, because I think you mentioned there's 30 departments and institutes. So you probably have a wide range of needs.
The departments right now at this time, none of our departments are, I'll say the administrators in the departments are using InfoReady for any of their competitions at this time. They're interested in getting going. So really we would just, if someone in the department wanted to have their own opportunity, we make them an administrator in the account, and so that we wouldn't make them as like a super user, so they could get into anything and see things that we're doing at the college level. They can, since we haven't crossed that bridge yet, we really just haven't written down any rule of thumbs yet. But yeah, at the department level, they would just be able to be administrators and not super administrators, so they're not poking around. The only issue we've ran into at the department level is one of the programs we had for graduate students was for a fellowship, and we took in, I think, about 60 applications. And historically, the graduate program coordinators that work with the graduate students would work with the student to get their application, to where it needs to be, grab all their documentation that they needed to have, develop all their curriculum vitae, have their advisor help review their application content. And then the graduate program coordinator had gotten into the habit of submitting that application for the graduate student themselves through, at that time, was a Google form. Well, this last year, since we transitioned over to InfoReady, we said the student themselves need to log into the system, since it's connected to their user ID, and then apply themselves and submit their information. The graduate program coordinator can still help, get all their documents together, make sure everything looks good, and then, can be there to help them submit it if they needed to. But the student themselves is the one that needs to log in through the system, through their account. So it's listed under the student and not the graduate program coordinator. So there was some retraining that had to happen there. And one of the graduate program coordinators was still able to go in under their name and submit the applications for the student, which then throws off the student because throws off the application, because the applications are now under the graduate program coordinator's name, even though they may have filled in the student's name in the actual form. When you go into the system and start pulling out data, it's attached to their email account, to the graduate program coordinator's email account. And so now that throws my data off moving forward, and I kind of have to make sure I keep an eye on that and clean it up as we move forward. So there's other repercussions to that too, is that, when we say the post-award activities, so if I need to request reporting and I set up all the reporting reminders, those are now going to go to that graduate program coordinator because it's under her, their account versus the student. The student should get it as well, as long as they've filled in, certain fields for us, but it just gets kind of messy then. So I'm kind of waiting this next year for all those reporting requests to come out for this graduate program coordinator to come back and say, what is this, or who's it for? What am I doing? And say, hey, you remember last year when we said the student needed to apply? Well, this is why. And so there is a little bit of retraining that has to happen. And kind of, I know there can be a lot of hand-holding at times with graduate students and undergrad students and faculty and staff. So sometimes we kind of need to let go a little bit and be like, yep, it's okay. They need to log in under their own account just so the data stays accurate moving forward, that all these reminders stay on track as you need them to. So things like that. So just keep encouraging them.
I'm going to add one thing to that, and then we have time for one more question. So the system has proxy functionality where an applicant can go into their profile and add another individual as a proxy who can either apply on their behalf or make edits or contribute to the draft of the application. So that might be something to consider for next time, Jennifer. Another thing, if the student's not doing that, the super administrator and global administrators can actually go into accounts and add proxies on an applicant's behalf as well.
Yep, no,
that might help.
That's great. With us just rolling it out this last year, we were trying to kind of focus on like letting the students go in, because again, as we move forward with the engagement hub, we're encouraging graduate students to apply for things on their own, or a program or activity or whatever it may be. But yeah, we just kind of one step at a time.
Yeah, totally get it. I think last question here. Could you briefly talk about how you use PROGS reports to track proposal development, or PROGS reports in general?
To track proposal development.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we haven't fully developed this out. This part's a little difficult in InfoReady so far from what we found. Just tracking the status of working with a faculty member on a proposal. We've used it to get us to get the intent to submit form submitted so we know what faculty are asking of our team from the very start. After that, it is a lot of emailing back and forth or doing a shared file, shared folder to track documents. InfoReady, just right now we haven't found kind of has that option to do like, you know, a status report or a status tracking of it, and maybe there is, I just haven't dug in enough.
I will add that we have a big update to progress reports later this year that we're still in the design phase of, but that should improve the experience. I'll let you know, Jennifer.
That sounds great.
Thank you, everyone, for your time today. With special thanks to guest panelists Jennifer Kaufman and Christopher Stordelin from the University of Minnesota. Their contact details are on screen in case you want to reach out to them directly. Thank you, Jennifer and Christopher. I think lots of great information here that will be really helpful as people continue finding new ways to use InfoReady Review and Engagement Hub. Some InfoReady contact information is on screen. You can also contact the support team at support@inforeadycorp.com. And with that, thanks for your time. Stay safe and have a good week. And don't go crazy with all the planning you have to do early in the semester. Good luck with that. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.